The tunnel makes a sudden left turn and continues north, as far as you can see. You soon arrive at a closed wooden door in the left-hand wall. The door opens into a large candlelit room filled with incredibly lifelike statues of knights and warriors. A white-haired old man, dressed in tattered rags, jumps out from behind one of the statues and starts to giggle. Though he looks like a fool, the sparkle in his eyes makes you think there is more to him. In a high-pitched voice, he says, "Oh, good! Another stone for my garden. I'm glad you have come to join your friends. Now, I'm a fair man, so I'll ask you a question. If you answer correctly, I'll let you go free. But if your answer is wrong, I'll turn you to stone." He starts to chuckle again, obviously pleased with your arrival. The old man points at one of the statues, and you recognize it immediately. It is the knight who started the trial of champions. The agonized look on his face locked in stone for eternity. The old man smiles, saying, "This man weighs 100 pounds plus half his weight. How much does he weigh?" What will you answer? Still smiling, the old man looks at you and says, "Well done, stranger. You have answered correctly. I wish you good fortune during the rest of the trial of champions. And to this end, I shall increase your powers." He then mutters a few more unintelligible words, and you feel a powerful surge soar through your body, increasing your skill, stamina, and luck by 1. You bid the old man farewell and leave his room to continue north along the passage. Only a few meters further down the passage, you see another closed door in the left-hand wall. The letter X is scratched into its center panel. Putting your ear to the door, you listen intently but can hear nothing. The passage slowly starts to climb, leading you relentlessly northwards. There are no doorways or even an alcove to investigate, and you become less guarded as you plod on. After a while, you become so nonchalant that you fail to notice a thin tripwire stretched low across the passage. It is only when your foot catches it and you hear a distant rumble that you realize your mistake. The rumbling sound swells to an almost deafening level, and suddenly, out of the gloom of the tunnel ahead, you see a massive boulder rolling towards you, gathering speed with every second. You turn to flee the oncoming boulder. You run faster than you have ever run in your life, but still the boulder is catching up on you. This is a tough one, a test of both your skill and stamina. We'll roll 2 dice, and if the number rolled is equal to or less than both your skill and stamina scores, you should be fine. But if the number rolled is more than either of them, then things could end very badly indeed. Your fear gives you a new surge of energy, and somehow your tired legs manage to keep you in front of the boulder. Ahead, on your right, you see the welcome sight of a doorway. You lunge at the door, and mercifully it flies open. The boulder thunders past you, and you are left lying exhausted on the floor of a large room. Looking around you, you see an alcove in the west wall and a stone chair in the middle of the room. Sitting in the chair is the skeleton of an armed warrior possibly a contestant from years gone by. The skeletal fingers of its right hand grip a crumpled parchment. At the back of the alcove are some steps leading down into a cellar. Cobwebs brush your face as you descend. The cellar ceiling is quite low, and the floor is strewn with debris. In the middle of the wall opposite you is an archway, which leads into another crystal-lit tunnel. There are large mushrooms growing on the debris to your right. You break off a large piece of the mushroom and bite into it eagerly. But immediately your stomach feels bloated, and you can even see it beginning to bulge below your belt. Your whole body starts to expand, bursting out of your clothes with a loud ripping sound. You grow bigger and bigger, and soon your face is pressed against the ceiling. The mushrooms you have eaten are much sought after by wizards for their growth potions, but to you they spell doom. You are too large ever to leave the cellar, and your adventure ends here. The tunnel the door. The old man points at one of the still smiling. Only a few meters. You run fast. Before you have time to reach a doorway, the tunnel The old man points, still smiling. Only a few meters. The door. At the back of the alcove, the tunnel continues west for several hundred meters, finally ending at some steps leading up to a closed trap door. You climb the steps slowly, hearing muffled voices above you. In the dim light, you can see that the trap door is not locked. You throw the trap door open and run up the steps into a bright, lantern-lit room. Two goblins are sharpening their short swords on a stone set in the middle of the floor. You catch them momentarily off guard, but they quickly recover and both rush forward to attack you. A point of note here, adventurer. Because of the shape of the room, both goblins will have a separate attack on you each attack round. However, here your attack will only be effective on one of the goblins. Against the other, you must still use your attack strength in a normal way. But even if your attack would have been effective, you will not wound it. It will just count this as though you have defended yourself. However, if its attack strength is greater, it will have wounded you in the normal way. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You hurl yourself at your enemy, fists flailing, and land a stunning blow. You try to run around the side of the creature, but it grabs your arm, throwing you hard into the wall. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You manage to get around the back of your enemy, but it quickly kicks backward, catching you agonizingly in the stomach. You both swing for each other, and in the confusion, both miss. You thrust your sword, and you clearly damage the creature. Readying yourself for another attack, you fail to see the rock flying towards you. Your stamina is reduced as it lands hard in your stomach. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You try to run around the side of the creature, but it grabs your arm, throwing you hard into the wall. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You manage to get around the back of your enemy, but it quickly kicks backward, catching you agonizingly in the stomach. Triumphant in one of your toughest battles to date, you see that the only furniture in the goblin's room is a table, 2 chairs, and a cupboard on the wall. There are 2 closed doors, one in the west wall and the other in the north wall. The cupboard contains a wooden mallet and 10 iron spikes, which you put in your backpack while wondering which door to open. The door opens into another tunnel, which rises gently into the distance. After walking uphill for a while, the tunnel levels out, and you soon arrive at a door in the right-hand wall, to which a withered hand is nailed. You enter a room in which a man in tattered clothing is standing chained to the wall by his left arm, and you see that his right hand is missing and realize that this must be the one nailed to the door. Pleading for mercy, he cowers back from you as far as his chains will allow. You step up to the frightened man and cleave the chain with your sword. He drops to his knees and bows, thanking you over and over again. He tells you that 4 years ago, he entered the Trial of Champions but failed. He fell down a pit and had to be rescued by a trial master, one of Baron Succumvit's dungeon administrators. He was offered a choice between death or servitude in Deathtrap Dungeon as the trial master's minion. Choosing the latter, he worked like a slave until he could stand it no longer and tried to escape. Alas, he was unsuccessful and was captured by the trial master's wandering orc guards. To teach him a lesson, they cut off his hand and condemned him to a year's imprisonment in this cell. You ask him whether he has any information that might be of use to you. He scratches his head. Well, I haven't exactly done very well in here myself, but I do know that you need to collect gems and precious stones if you hope to get out. I don't know why, but there it is. Without another word, the ragged prisoner dashes out of the room, turning left into the tunnel. You decide to keep heading north and turn right. There is an open pipe in the right-hand wall, about 1 meter in diameter. It is too dark to see far down it. You shout into it and hear your voice echoing down the iron pipe until eventually the sound fades away. There is a new branch in the tunnel on your left, and ahead you see 2 bodies lying on the floor. You stop and peer down the new tunnel, but seeing no doors or creatures, you decide against walking down it. With your sword drawn, you walk over to the bodies of the 2 orc guards. At least one of your rivals in the Trial of Champions must still be ahead of you. A quick search of the bodies produces nothing, apart from a necklace of teeth around the neck of one of the orcs. There is a new branch in the tunnel on your left, and ahead you see 2 bodies lying on the floor. You stop and peer down the new tunnel, but seeing no doors or creatures, you decide against walking down it. With your sword drawn, you walk over to the bodies of the 2 orc guards. At least one of your rivals in the Trial of Champions must still be ahead of you. A quick search of the bodies produces nothing, apart from a necklace of teeth around the neck of one of the orcs. The tunnel soon ends at a junction. Standing there alone and wondering which way to go is one of your rivals. It is one of the barbarians. You call out to him, but at first he does not answer. He merely stares at you coldly, his hands firmly gripping his axe. You walk up to him and ask which way he is heading. He grunts his reply, saying that he is going west, and you may go with him if you wish. Although you are slightly uneasy in each other's company, knowing that there can only be one winner in the Trial of Champions, you are both content to share in the benefits of a temporary alliance. And you begin to tell each other of your exploits so far, of the monsters and traps encountered and the dangers overcome. Walking along, you soon come to the edge of a wide pit. It is too deep and dark to see to the bottom. The barbarian suggests he lowers you to the bottom with his rope, saying he has a torch which he can light for you to use. The barbarian reluctantly agrees to your alternative suggestion. You both step back and take running jumps over the pit, landing safely on the other side. Pleased with the ease with which you clear the obstacle, you continue down the tunnel. The barbarian, now a little reckless, fails to see a raised floor stone, which tilts forward as he stumbles over it, releasing a huge boulder loosely set in the ceiling. The rock crashes down on top of the barbarian, knocking him to the floor, crushing his skull. You must now continue your quest alone. Feeling sorry for the loss of your new companion, you carry on down the tunnel. Suddenly you see daylight. You run towards the most beautiful sight you have seen for a long time and emerge, expecting to see the welcoming sight of cheering people. But there is no hero's welcome from the people all around you. They are dead. You are standing in a cold chamber littered with armored skeletons and bodies. The exit to victory was just an illusion. Only the corpses of the past adventures are real. Utterly dejected, you walk back towards the tunnel, but hit an invisible barrier. You, like the adventurers tricked before you, are trapped in this ghoulish place and destined to end your days in the chamber of the dead. There is an open pipe in the right-hand wall, about 1 meter in diameter. It is too dark to see far down it. You shout into it and hear your voice. The necklace is an amulet of strength, which adds 1 skill point and 1 stamina point. Pleased with your find, you continue your quest north. The tunnel soon ends at a junction. Standing there alone and wondering which way to go is one of your rivals. It is one of the barbarians. Although the barbarian reluctantly, feeling sorry for the loss of your new companion, you carry on down the tunnel. Suddenly you see daylight. You run towards the most beautiful sight you have seen for a long time and emerge, expecting to see the welcoming sight of cheering people. But there is no hero's welcome from the people all around you. They are dead. You are standing in a cold chamber littered with armored skeletons and bodies. The exit to victory was just an illusion. Only the corpses of the past adventures are real. Utterly dejected, you walk back towards the tunnel, but hit an invisible barrier. You, like the adventurers tricked before you, are trapped in this ghoulish place and destined to end your days in the chamber of the dead. Although you the barbarian, feeling sorry, although you are the barbarian, who tells you he is called Throm, ties the rope around his waist, giving you the free end. As he lights the torch, you see a look of distrust in his eyes. Slowly, he climbs over the edge of the pit while you brace yourself and take the strain of the rope. As you lower him little by little, you see the smooth sides of the pit illuminated by Throm's torch. He finally reaches the bottom and calls up to you, saying that there is another tunnel running north. He tells you to secure the rope around a rock protruding from the edge of the pit and lower yourself to the bottom. After tying the rope around the rock, you lower yourself slowly to the bottom of the pit. Throm retrieves his rope by shaking it off the rock, and you set off together down the new tunnel. On a stone ledge in the tunnel wall, you see two dusty leather-bound books. Throm grunts his contempt for the written word, urging you to leave the books and hurry on. The book pages are sealed together, but a small hole has been cut out in the middle of them, just large enough to hold a small corked bottle containing a clear liquid. You show it to Throm, who holds up his hand, indicating that he does not want you to come anywhere near him with it. His distrust of things unknown is strongly evident. As you open the book, it immediately begins to disintegrate, the pages turning to dust in your hands. You manage to keep a few fragments and read the handwritten script. The book appears to be about monsters, and from what you can make out, it contains a full description of a monster called the Blood Beast. It is a horrific, bloated creature with tough, spiny skin and facial blisters which burst open to become mock eyes, evolved to hide the blood beast's only weak spot, the real eyes. Blood beasts usually dwell in pools of fetid slime which give off a poisonous gas so strong that it alone can easily knock people unconscious. The blood beast, although too bulbous to haul itself out of its slime pool, has a long and vicious tongue which it wraps around its victims before it drags them into its pool. As the helpless and still living victim's flesh decomposes in the vile slime, the blood beast will feed on it. You tell Throm about the grotesque blood beast. He merely shrugs his shoulders and tells you to get going. Setting off, you continue your journey north with Throm. The tunnel turns sharply to the right, continuing east for as far as you can see. Throm stops and tells you to halt as well. He turns his head slowly from side to side, listening. "I hear footsteps coming down the tunnel towards us," he whispers. "Draw your sword." You both crouch down to hide in the shadows, and not a minute too soon. For a moment later, you see the silhouette of two armed guards. Throm jumps up and dashes forward, screaming a loud battle cry. They are two cave trolls. Throm attacks the first one with his battle axe, and you run to his aid to attack the second. The troll grabs you by the throat and manages to half choke you before you get a chance to push it off. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You parry the attack, but your enemy is too strong, and you crack your head on the floor as you hit the ground. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. You drop to the ground, grab the creature, and ram its head hard into the wall. You look to the left and see Throm standing over the cave troll he has slain. Blood is pouring out from a deep cut in his shoulder, but it does not seem to worry him. You search the bodies of the cave trolls, but find nothing apart from a bone ring on a leather cord hanging round the neck of one of them. The ring is engraved with a symbol which Throm recognizes. He explains that it must have belonged to druids of the north, and that an ancient talisman such as this will increase your powers if your body is able to accept it. As soon as you put the ring on your finger, your whole body starts to shake. We'll see how skillful you really are. Remember, a roll equal to or less than your skill score means you've been skillful, but a roll higher than your skill could end badly. Your body vibrates wildly, and you are unable to stop yourself passing out. As you collapse, you lose 3 stamina points. You wake to find Throm pulling the ring off your finger. He puts it on the floor and crushes it with the head of his battle axe. Then, grunting to show his disapproval of you, he strides off east. You stand up slowly and stagger off after him. The tunnel leads into a damp cavern with a high ceiling and rock-strewn floor. Long and wet, the tunnel leads into a damp cavern with a high ceiling and rock-strewn floor. Long and wet, teeth-like stalactites hang down threateningly. Their constant dripping creates milky pools on the floor. The tunnel carries on through an archway carved in the shape of a demonic mouse. The tunnel ends at a large oak door. Throm wastes no time in testing the handle and is somewhat surprised to find the door unlocked. He pushes it open and walks into a torch-lit chamber. Sitting alone on an ornate chair is a dwarf who bids you enter. As you do so, the oak door swings shut behind you. Adventurers, you have done well to get this far, says the dwarf in a deep voice. However, as you both know, there can only be one winner in the Trial of Champions. As Trial Master, it is my duty to Baron Circumvit, to let only the most able continue. Therefore, I must devise a test of wits and strength to eliminate one of you. Please do not attempt to dispose of me. It will be utterly pointless, for, as you can see, there is no obvious way out of this chamber, and only I know where the hidden exit lies. Now, if you would care to decide between you who will go first, I shall make the necessary preparations. You look at Throm, suddenly angry that your effective partnership might come to an end. He leans over and whispers in your ear that you should try to kill the dwarf and worry about the exit later. You tell Throm that there is no point in killing the dwarf, as you will never find your way out of the chamber alone. You argue that an opportunity of tricking the dwarf might arise later, once you have found the exit from the chamber. So you intend to go through with the dwarf's test. You tell the dwarf that you are ready, and he beckons you to follow him, telling Throm to wait for his return. A secret door opens in the chamber wall, and you follow the dwarf into a small circular room. He closes the door behind you and hands you 2 bone dice, telling you to throw them onto the floor. You roll a 6 and a 2, a total of 8. The dwarf asks you to roll them again, but this time you must predict whether the total will be the same, less, or more than the 8. The dwarf looks at the dice.
Not very good at playing the odds, are you?
He sneers.
I regret you must suffer a penalty before you can continue.
From out of his pocket, he produces 2 pills. One is stamped with the letter S, and the other stamped with the letter L. He asks you to choose one and swallow it. The pill makes you feel as though the whole world is against you, reducing your luck points by 2. The dwarf tells you that you can now go on to the second stage of the test. He reaches for a wicker basket which, he informs you, contains a snake. He tips the basket over and the snake drops out onto the floor. It is a cobra, and it rears up in the air ready to strike. The dwarf tells you that he wishes to test your reactions. You must grasp the cobra bare-handed below its head, avoiding its deadly fangs. You crouch down on the floor, tensing yourself for the moment at which to seize it. This will be a tough test of your skill. With lightning speed, you thrust your hand out and grip the cobra just below its open mouth. You lift it up, and with your arm outstretched, you dangle it in front of the dwarf. He doesn't flinch, but says in his calm, expressionless way,
Please put the cobra back in the basket and prepare for the final part of the test. Follow me.
You do what he says and follow him back into the chamber, where Throm is pacing up and down, obviously ill at ease. You wave to him while the dwarf opens a second secret door and tells you to walk on through and wait for him. Again you comply, and you find yourself in another circular room, although this one resembles a small arena. The floor is covered with sand, and a small balcony runs around the arena wall. Opposite the secret entrance you came in through is an ominous-looking wooden door. Suddenly you hear a shout, and you look up to see the smiling dwarf standing on the balcony. He throws 2 pieces of paper down to you. On one of them, the words, "No crop is," are written. On the other, "Ruin moat." In his ever-calm voice, he says,
If you rearrange the letters of the words, you will find the names of 2 creatures. You may choose which one to fight in my arena of death.
Can you identify the creature by rearranging the letters? You call out to the dwarf that you are ready to fight the Minotaur. The wooden door rises slowly, and you see the fearsome beast, half man, half bull, step into the arena. Steam blows from its nostrils as it works itself up into a rage, ready to attack. Suddenly it rushes forward, swinging its double-headed axe. The swinging double-headed axe is a formidable weapon, and you shriek as it sinks into your arm. You manage to get around the back of your enemy, but it quickly kicks backward, catching you agonizingly in the stomach. You try to run around the Minotaur, but it grabs your arm, throwing you hard into the wall. The dwarf calls down from the balcony, congratulating you on your victory. He throws the sack down into the arena and tells you to relax and regain your strength for the final part of the test. Then he walks off, saying he will return in about 10 minutes. You open the sack and find a jug of wine and a cooked chicken. The food and drink are excellent, and you feel much better, gaining 2 more stamina points. Fully satisfied, you sit down and await the dwarf's return. After about 20 minutes, the dwarf reappears on the balcony. He calls down to you, saying,
Well, I do have an interesting problem on my hands. Prepare to fight your next opponent.
The wooden door rises once again, and you are surprised to see a familiar face. It is Throm. He is cut and badly bruised and doesn't seem to recognize you. He is clearly delirious as he staggers forward with his axe raised to attack you. The dwarf laughs and says,
The cobra bit him, but he has the strength of an ox and managed to carry on, even though most men would have died. Now you must fight him to decide finally which of you will continue the trial of champions.
You shout abuse at the dwarf, protesting the cruelty of such a contest. He merely laughs, and you have no option but to defend yourself against poor Throm. Despite his wounds, he is immensely strong. Throm swings low, crashing into your ankles and knocking you off balance. Throm grabs you by the throat and manages to half choke you before you get a chance to push him off. You parry Throm's attack, but he is too strong, and you trip, cracking your head on the floor as you fall. Exhausted by your long duel, you fall to your knees as you stare at Throm's still body. A bitter loathing for the dwarf fills your heart. Somehow, you will avenge Throm. Engulfed in your hatred, you do not notice the dwarf enter the arena until he is standing right in front of you, a loaded crossbow aimed at your chest.
I know what you are thinking,
he says calmly.
But remember that only I know the way out of here. Get up. It's time for you to leave.
Once on your feet, the dwarf indicates that you should walk ahead of him. Back in the chamber, he crosses over to the northern wall and pushes against one of its stones. A door-like section of the wall swings out, opening into another crystal-lit tunnel. With his crossbow still aimed at your chest, the dwarf smiles, saying,
"Good luck."
The tunnel soon divides into two. You hear a buzzing sound coming from the western branch. The tunnel leads into a dark chamber covered in thick cobwebs. Clawing your way through them, you trip over a wooden casket. The casket opens easily, and inside there is a black velvet bag containing a large pearl, gaining you 1 luck point. After putting the pearl in your pocket, you press on through the cobwebs. You reach the far wall of the chamber and see 2 doors. As you touch the door handle, it goes soft in your hand, and when you try to pull it away, you find your hand is now glued to the handle. A giant fist then forms in the center of the door panel and shoots forward, punching you in the stomach, costing you 1 stamina point. The fist retracts and prepares to strike again. With your free hand, you draw your sword and try to cut the handle off the door. Although you do not recognize it, you are being attacked by the fluid form of an imitator. The imitator is extremely fast. Before you see it happen, it pokes you hard in the eye. Thankfully, it doesn't blind you, but the pain is searing. You pull harder and harder to try to get free. In your increasing panic, the fist catches you on the chin with a powerful uppercut. You see stars for a few seconds. Again and again, the fists fly from the door. When a final blow takes the last of your strength, you fall to the floor, your stamina finished. Your quest ends here. Again, with lightning speed, you thrust your hand out and grip the cobra just. You try to run around the Minotaur, but it grabs your arm. The swinging double-headed axe is a formidable weapon, and you shriek as it sinks into your arm. You manage to get around the back of your enemy, but it quickly kicks backward. The dwarf calls down from the back. The food and drink are excellent. After about 20 minutes, you parry Throm's attack. Throm's Throm grabs you by the throat. Exhausted by a long duel, The tunnel. The casket. You reach the far wall. The door opens into another tunnel running north. Ahead you see 2 stone fountains, one on either side of the tunnel, carved in the shape of cherubs. Water spouts from their mouths and cascades into small bowls at their feet. The cool water is refreshing and comes from a source which has been sprinkled with pixie dust, gaining you 1 stamina point and 2 skill points. Leaning against the left-hand wall of the tunnel, you see a pair of bamboo stilts. They are securely chained, and you see a label attached to a padlock, which reads, "The price of these stilts is 1 gold piece. Place the coin in the slot to release the lock." There is a slot in the padlock into which you place the coin. Immediately the lock clicks apart, and you are able to unchain the stilts. You place them on your shoulder and once again set off north. A little farther on, you come to a section of the tunnel which is covered with thick green slime. It looks threatening, so you decide to test it first with a piece of cloth. The slime's corrosive jelly burns the cloth instantly, leaving no trace. You climb onto your stilts and take a few tentative steps across the floor. Your confidence grows, and you soon feel able to tackle the walk across the slime. Smoke rises from the base of the stilts as the slime starts to burn them away. You plod stolidly on and finally reach firm ground again. Unfortunately, the stilts are still covered in slime, and you are forced to dump them. Setting off north, you come to a junction. A little farther on, you come to a section of the tunnel which is covered with thick green slime. It looks threatening, so you decide to test it first with a piece of cloth. The slime's corrosive jelly burns the cloth instantly, leaving no trace. You climb onto your stilts and take a few tentative steps across the floor. Your confidence grows, and you soon feel able to tackle the walk across the slime. Smoke rises from the base of the stilts as the slime starts to burn them away. You plod stolidly on and finally reach firm ground again. Unfortunately, the stilts are still covered in slime, and you are forced to dump them. Setting off north, you come to a junction. You walk no more than 3 meters west before you hit an invisible barrier. It starts fizzing and crackling, and you are thrown back. You have hit an energy screen, losing you 1 stamina point. There is no alternative but to walk back to the junction and head north. You soon arrive at a double door in the left-hand wall. You listen at the door but hear nothing. You try the handle, it turns, and you open the left door slightly and peer through the crack. An armed warrior is lying face down on the floor of a bare room with smooth walls and a low ceiling. He is presumably dead, for he makes no movement, even when you call out to him. A large jewel, perhaps a diamond, lies just beyond his outstretched arm. You finally reach the warrior's body, but as soon as you touch the jewel, both it and the warrior vanish into thin air. You hear the door slam behind you, followed by a sudden, ominous rumbling above you. You look up and see the ceiling start to lower. You run to the door to try to escape, but it is locked and there is no handle on the inside. The ceiling gradually drops until you are forced to lie on the ground, trying to halt the ceiling's progress with your hands and feet. But it is a hopeless task, and you are crushed to death in the stone vise. If only you'd found a potion that allowed you to detect traps like this.